Hello everyone and welcome back to the Crafty Crew podcast. My name is Kinger or Big Juicy, and as always I'm joined by Mark.
Hello.
By Nally.
Well.
And by Walshy.
Hola muchachos.
Well, that's Spanish.
Spanish.
It's so easy, like. I would accuse you of being lazy now because it was Irish last week and it's everyone knows Spanish.
So let me get this right. I go out of my way to get made up
out of your way
languages. Now. Well, I mean, you know, you had Game of Thrones and a few other mad ones like that. I got ridiculed for that. Now I go back to what I have and tweak them a little bit with throwing Big Juicy in there and muchachos and stuff like that. And now I'm getting ridiculed for that. Boys, there's no pleasing you.
Can I ask you a question, Walshy? Did you know?
Walshy. Boo.
Did you know the Spanish for hello before this episode started?
Yes. It was
so there you go.
I did have to look up the muchachos though.
Walshy, did you know that Belfast was an Antrim before this episode started?
No. I was hoping that I'd lie about that. No, I don't. And I don't really.
We'll get to that as we continue our journey across Ireland's 32 counties and 32 breweries from those counties. So this week it's we have Boundaries, Existential Angst, and we have the Beer Hut's Session IPA Soft and Tropical, representing
yourself.
Down and representing Down and Antrim. So I knew I should have looked at the phone before we started this. Nally, tell us about Beer Hut, will you?
Yeah, no bother, man. So Beer Hut is the beer that Mark's going to tell us everything about.
I was there.
Well played.
That was Mark, all right, but that was very well done.
I'll tell you about Boundary if you want, though. But
please do. Yeah.
All right. So Boundary, they're based in Belfast, which is in Antrim, up the north, and they're a cooperative brewery, which I haven't really heard of before. So they're founded in 2014. This guy, Mike, I think was his name. He was doing a PhD and he took time out of it because, he'd been to the US a couple of times, he'd been to Belgium a couple of times, and he just got big into brewing, and he came back to the north and he said, kind of realised there was a big gap in the market. There wasn't a whole lot of craft brewing going on up there at the time when he came back. So he set up a cooperative brewery. So a cooperative brewery is basically you can buy membership and be a member of this brewery. It's kind of like a crowdfunding, like Patreon or something like that. But essentially you pay like £100 a year. You're a member of the brewery. It gives you like a discount on the online shop and stuff like that. But essentially that's how they fund all their beer and how they funded their brewery and everything like that. So something like they have over 1,400 members now. Within a couple of weeks, a couple of months, he ended up getting raising 70 grand, which was amazing. Fair play to him, great going. But yeah, I've had a couple of these beers from Boundary, and I have to say I love them. I haven't had a bad one from them yet. Everything from their export stout, Imbongo, which is a tropical IPA. I know the lads are big fans of it as well. And for Big Juicy, I found one that they've released recently. It's called Imbongorific.
Ooh.
And Imbongorific is a double IPA based off the Imbongo IPA. So I think even Walshy can get on board on that.
I'd definitely try it anyway.
So I figured Walshy might be up for that. So what I've found is they've gone one further. They've released a beer called Imbongolicious, which is a tipper. So I mean, if I can get my hands on four of them, or anyone knows where I can get my hands on four of them, they are 100% going to be happening at some stage. But they've had a couple of other good beers. Actually, the pilot for this show had a Boundary beer on it. It was one of the nicest beers I've ever had. But yeah, Boundary Brewing, they're really good. I'm really looking forward to this. We'll talk more about their cans again when we get to it, but the can style is something I really like about it as well. It's one of those you kind of know it's Boundary without knowing it's Boundary. It's a bit weird, but we talk about it more. This one isn't as much as some of the other ones, but they're really good. It's a solid brewery, like I said, from 2014 to now. Every beer I've had from them have always been good, high quality H2O.
Yeah, I've yet to have one from them that has been vaguely disappointing. Like they always seem to have a really good beer, which is setting the bar very high for this episode to start with. I'm almost afraid to ask if they said Walshy, but like, are you going to give us some Walshy insight about Antrim?
Right. I was looking up because, as you know, I like to try and make up something involving the name. So I looked up
No.
nicknames of counties or whatever, but they're known as the Glensmen, and Glen is another word for the valley. And Antrim is known for its 9 glens. So I assume, like most things, it's named after a famous person. The Glen. So I did a bit of research and I found that it's named after the most famous actress, well, not famous, sorry, a famous actress in America, Glenn Close.
Okay.
Okay.
What?
Yeah,
How
I
is what? How? What? Antrim and Glenclose. I don't think they even have any letters in common. Nearly. Maybe the N.
No, the Glen.
Oh. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Keep up
That makes
your
more
Were
name.
sense.
you just looking for a famous Glen to make the link with?
Well, let's be honest. I was looking for a famous Glens, and that was the only one that I actually was familiar with. So, yeah.
Glen Hansard.
Glen
Don't know who
Rowe.
that is.
Glenroe. Yeah.
Glen Rowe would actually be
Glen,
Glen
Rowe was a
Whelan.
great
Glen
one.
Whelan.
Glen
Glen
Whelan.
Whelan.
Glen Whelan. Jesus, I mean, there's a lot of them, isn't there?
Well, that doesn't mean I know
Yeah.
them.
We say there's a lot of them, but we've
You named 3.
we've got through 3 and been like,
Well,
yeah, that's
you
a
named
lot. That's a
2
lot.
people and a place. Or on a TV show.
Yeah. Close enough.
Yeah, a fictional place in a TV
Yeah.
show.
Glen Rowe would have been actually a good shout, though.
Okay, that just took a weird turn with Glen Close. Mark, what's up with Down?
Hey.
Whee! 12 weeks waiting to use that one, weren't you?
Jesus Christ.
You
I love it.
salty
Big
motherfucker.
fan.
It's what I'm here for. It's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Okay, so Beer Hut was set up in January 2017, so it's kind of one of the more recent breweries we've had in this season. You know, I haven't been around that long. So they're kind of interesting. They're set up with 2 brothers-in-law, so I assume that they're wives or sisters based on that. You know, big assumptions. They're based in Kilkeel in Down. It's in the foothills of the Mourne Mountains. So it's been pretty busy. It was set up so the guys' names are actually Andrew McBride and Neil Chambers. And they've a nice little line here where they said they used their skills as plumbers and joiners to knock the place into shape. So I guess they kind of had a part in brewing it. Or sorry, I guess they kind of had a part in building the brewery. So yeah, they're kind of weird, right? So they have their main kind of like, what would you call it? Their main range, right? So it's called the Core IPA, the Core Pack. So they have an IPA, a Session IPA, and their Pale Ale, right? So they're not actually named. So if you look at your can today, we're trying the Session. It just says Session IPA. So I think that's kind of a nice little thing that, oh yeah, they're a core. We don't need to name them. This is just what they are. So I kind of like that. Their cans are all these just like solid grey metal can with like really minimalistic design. However, whenever they do something unusual, so they have a solo series, they have like, collaborations and stuff, they kind of push it out a little bit. They put a proper kind of label on it with cool colours and a cool design, but they still retain the kind of solid silver metal can. And the kind of particular, I guess, shade of silver is very much their own. So, they're a really solid brewery. This will be the final of the core range. I've had their IPA and I've had their Pale Ale. They're both like grand beers. They're good, I would say not excellent. I haven't had a chance to try any of their specials. So I'll just give you a quick little list of some of their specials, right? They had Bring the Thunder, Raspberry Cherry and Coconut Sour. They had their Galaxy Mosaic Cornet double IPA. Yeah. They had Super Stylin', which is a pineapple, lemon and lime sour. Okay, and then this has to be one of the most interesting beers I found that I've never tried, right? So they had a thing called their Electric Stout. And what it was, okay, so like there's loads of stouts that are like aged in rum barrels or whiskey barrels, that kind of thing. Okay, so they went to a local musicians group, who craft musicians, so like fiddles, guitars, and stuff, and they got wood shavings from the crafting workshop, and they added them to the stout and aged them with the wood shavings, thereby becoming like the electric kind of stout.
Weird.
And like it's just such a cool concept that they're not using like whiskey coated barrels or rum coated barrels. It's literally just wood out of a workshop, and they're using that to kind of, alter their stout. And I don't know whether this is even still on sale or not, but if I could ever get my hands on that, I'd love to try it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty unreal. So it does, to be fair, just something very interesting. Like, because I mean, if you're going to luthiers and you're getting all the wood shavings off the ground, God knows what it is, Because if they're making a guitar, there's going to be 6-7 different types of wood you could end up having. Rosewood, maplewood. So as opposed to just the traditional, oak barrel aged or whatever, you're going to get some weird notes, especially if all those shavings are just mixed together, thrown into one drum and being like, here you go, lads, let's see how this just turns out,
Yeah. So apparently, like, there's a bit of a description I found on a review, but it's 8.5% this stuff. It has a smooth woody taste with flavours of dried fruit and chocolate. And it's said that a bowl of stew and a roaring fire would be a cracking St. Patrick's weekend hat trick. So yeah, it's no less than yourself with the Pliny the Elder, Nally, like where you have a beer that you don't know if you could ever get, but you'd love to try. This is kind of my one now. Ever since I read up about it, I'm like, I'd give a lot to try this.
So Boundary or Beer Hut, if you're listening, get that down here, figure it out, get it on to Mark.
And Walshy, what have you discovered about Down?
I no more than that looked up the county as well as in the name, and it got its name from, I want to say it's Dun, D-U-N, which is the Irish for fort. But what I'd like to think, it was just a group of messers got together, a bit like us probably, and just said, like, what can we do to fuck with people and confuse the shit out of people? Let's have a county up north and call it Down, and just confuse the shit out of everybody.
People in the north don't say up north. We say up north because we're south.
We're not in the north, so down here we say up north.
I will give them one thing though. Up the north, they probably say down south if they're referring to us. Do they?
Oh yeah.
See,
so
they would, yeah.
By that, they're implying that they are up to our down. So I'll give. Yeah. For once, I'll defend Walshy a little bit.
Okay.
Thanks, Mary.
This could become a very existential type of conversation.
So, where is he going with this?
Shall we move on to the first beer of the week?
Does that mean we're starting with Beer Hut then? Is it?
No, definitely Boundary, I suppose.
Okay, so let's get going with Boundary's Existential Angst.
Excellent. Singer, that was a epic two-wheeled.
Thank you very much.
Two-wheeled locomotive device that you just had there. Epic.
They call it a Segway.
Yeah, that's the one.
Peachy Segway. Peachy Segway. Yeah.
Yeah. You like that little throw up there, but these Boundaries. So yeah, just before we get them poured out in the whole lot, these cans are class. I'm a big fan of these cans.
Very cool.
Every one of them, they're just really cool. They're kind of like it's kind of like just someone got a heap of spray paint or something, and not graffiti as in pictures and words and stuff, but what's that kind of art style?
Art Nouveau.
It's not really. Yeah, kind of Art Nouveau. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, so. Like if you think of, those the old absinthe paintings and stuff, like the background where they have just multiple colours that kind of fade into each other. They're really cool, so they are. Big fan of them, so I am. Also...
Yeah, sorry, Nally, but like as well with the label, the quality of the label, it feels real canvassy. So it's actually a very pleasant can to hold, which is a silly thing to say. But they've obviously gone for a specific type of label that's not your standard label. It feels like art canvas.
Yeah, it's kind of got ridges running through the whole thing, so it's really cool. The other thing about them is their names of the beers are all a bit mental, so Imbongo and Export are normal ones for them, And then they have ones like existential angst, or if you don't stand for this, what will you fall for, or something like that. They have a heap of just random names of beers, and I love it. I just love it. So I do. One of them, the one of them at the minute, their tippa that I have here as well, is called The Room Where It Happened. So I mean, that's what I'm probably going to be thinking after I have that drink, and I'm like, oh shit, that's where it all went down.
Just really quickly before we go on from the artwork, then I did notice on the side, and I don't know if this is a feature of any other can, but I like this one. They have artwork and they have the artist's information there, so it's johnrobinsonart.com. So you can actually go and see his actual artwork, I'd say, online, which is quite cool.
I wonder,
cool.
being a cooperative brewery, maybe this John Robinson guy is actually involved as a co-op member or something.
Yeah,
Possibly,
you know what?
Yeah, possibly.
That's probably not a bad shout. It probably could be a member.
I realize most breweries might look after their own artwork, but the fact that these use an outside source and credit him on the can, I think, is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think that's really, it's just a classy gesture as well, just to ensure that the artists get credited.
So just before we start describing this beer and actually critiquing it, these are one of those breweries, maybe not so much for me, but definitely for you guys, where the bar has been set high by your previous experience with them. So you're expecting another kind of smashing beer. Obviously, you're going to be critical about it and analytical, but probably in your mind, you're kind of expecting something very good. So I'd be interested to see where this heads from your point of view.
I was going to say, going back to the thing that Nelly was saying about the mad names of them, I've always kind of wondered when I see some places have these kind of crazy names, and like, how did they come up with it? You kind of half imagine a group of lads around a table. It's like, right, lads, we have this here. We want something out there. And someone goes, existential. Sounds a bit weird. And someone's randomly like, oh, I think it's missing something. It's like, how about angst? I'm like, yeah, cool, let's go with that. Just some really, really mad names for beers. Some of them are straightforward enough and kind of self-explanatory, and then other ones are just completely out there altogether.
I don't know what I mean, I'd like to think that maybe there's a reason they've used the name. They haven't just plucked random words out of the sky.
You wouldn't know. No, I'm sure there is, but
Like existential angst is a thing.
Yeah.
It is a thing, yeah. You can have existential angst.
And you
a
do.
crisis.
You do
Just a
after
quick one.
10 or 12 cans, you do. You get it.
You
Yeah.
absolutely do. Yeah.
A quick one there, just before I go fully onto this beer. Just on what you were saying there, Mark. Because the bar is kind of set so high, I mean, if anything, I find a lot of the times if I have a brewery that I really like, and they give me a new beer, and especially if it ends up getting on the podcast and it's a beer I haven't tried from a brewery, I end up nearly being more critical of them on the podcast, because I'm like, I can't let my bias towards this brewery get there. So it's, I'm like, I'm going to be a bit extra harsh on them, and if they still come out on top, then they've really deserved it,
Okay,
Yeah.
look, moving on then. It's a typically boundary type fruity smell.
Yeah, very fruity smells of this. I like that. I like that on the cans that they have. They'll give you the name of the hops. So I've said this a number of times. I love when the cans will give you the name of the hops. But not only that, these give you the quantities of hops they've used.
Measurement.
So,
yeah.
for example, this is like 16 grams per litre of Citra, Nelson, Savon, and Columbus hops, which is kind of cool to have that measurement as well,
It's a 4.5% ABV beer, right? But upon the appearance, this is a thick boy. This is super juicy, super hazy. It is in that dipper kind of straw colour, but like no light penetrates this kind of thing range.
No.
So I looked at it and I thought, oh, this must be pretty high in ABV, but the fact that it's only 4.5 is a bit of a contradiction to me.
yeah, I was actually going to say the same, Mark, just before you said it. It's like, it's very hazy. Like, you're seeing nothing through that. Like, it's super thick, and I get what you mean, as in it kind of looks like a dipper. Being a pale ale, it's like, what, 4.5? That's kind of the right kind of the percentage, but it's very, very thick looking.
At the start, there was quite a flurry of carbonation at it, and now, like after say 4 minutes or so of pouring it, it's really died down. There's nothing there, which is unusual as well with a pale ale of this ABV. Like,
Yeah. I'm also seeing quite a lot of sediment at the bottom of my glass. Now, I don't know if that's just me, or do you have that as well?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have that as well. You mightn't see it as much because I think, Mark, you and Walsh are both using kind of tulip style glasses, so it's not gonna be as evident. I have a regular pint glass, same as you, King, or American.
Yeah.
So it's just easier to see it, but that's just yeast from the can that's after falling out. That's nothing major. This 100% Mark agree. It's a super juicy looking beer. On the mouthfeel, it's a strange one because it's really kind of soft, but it's like really carbonated, but it's a load of like really small bubbles that dissipate super quick, and then it just leaves this kind of velvety texture. It's just really soft.
Are you getting kind of a lemony tartness off of it as well?
Yeah.
Some kind of citrusy, yeah.
But for me, I know, like with citrus, you're normally like, oh, that's just a citrus smell or a citrus taste. For me, this is actually quite lemony. Like I'm identifying lemon out of it, as opposed to just a general citrus kind of vibe.
I was, I was trying to just like, I'm getting vibes of a sour off it for some reason, but like that's kind of more, that's more accurate, like more of a kind of an actual citrus type of a flavor.
Yeah, I think a lot of sours are lemon sours, so.
Yeah,
you get the lemon, you're associating it with that, even though lemon is a citrus fruit.
Definitely get that kind of tartness that you're on about, Mark. But it's not overpowering. It's just kind of there near it's the middle to the end. It's not straight up front. Up front is kind of that carbonation and stuff, and then it kind of, as the carbonation kind of washes away, it leaves that kind of tartness and like a smoothness there as well. That's what I'm getting from it anyway.
I feel like it tastes quite boozy as well for something that's only, 4.6, did we say?
5.
4.5. It tastes a lot heavier than it actually is, which I find kind of strange. And also, I know it's not really something you guys are massive fans of.
I think, it does kind of have that taste a bit, Kinger. However, it doesn't have the heaviness that you get with those other beers that kind of have that. You know, like if you think of those dippers that we're kind of saying this is kind of like, they tend to be quite heavy as well, whereas this is maybe got a bit of that booziness, but it's an easier drink, so it is much easier in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't really get any of the kind of boozy alcohol taste off of it. It's certainly juicy, which I can see where you're coming from with the juicy side of it. Being an expert in that yourself, but for me, no, I'm just a little bit at odds with it because of it's like got that sweet tartness of a specific citrus fruit, as opposed to generally the just citrusy, more general notes you normally get with a Citra Pale Ale. I know it says Pale Ale, but you put Citra hops in it, it's a Citra Pale Ale, let's be honest. And the juiciness and the carbonation and the kind of haziness are kind of a contrast to what I normally expect with a Pale Ale, especially these days when lots of Pale Ales that do go this route call themselves hazy Pale Ales. Like they slap it on the can, like this, it's a hazy Pale Ale. But they haven't with this.
I don't really mind the fact that it doesn't say hazy pale ale or citrus pale ale. At the end of the day, it's just pale ale. I do get that slight tartness at the end. I mean, it's not a lot, but then it's not a sour, but you do get a small bit of it at the end. The look and the taste of it is very different. Like we said earlier on, it looks like it's probably a heavy beer. Like Mark was saying, it's like it looks like something that's a dipper, and you look at it and it's only 4.5, but then you taste it, it's so to take away from your name, juicy and smooth and it's pretty light, which in comparison to the look of it is kind of contradicts itself nearly.
I think Nally nailed the mouthfeel with it earlier, the velvety kind of feeling.
Yeah,
that it's a smooth, soft residue that gets left in your mouth. And I think probably the low ABV has a lot to do with that, because when you drink beers that normally look like this, they're kind of 6% and up, and there's a bit of harshness there because of the alcohol content. But with the lower alcohol content, it's not leaving behind such a strong flavour, and I think that might be where the velvetyness is coming from. I do enjoy that subtleness to it.
Yeah, I think you could be right, Mark. I think another thing that helps as well is because it's not got that higher ABV, the alcohol itself is not like stripping off the hop flavour that's kind of left there. You know, so because it's the lower ABV, it takes a bit longer for that flavour to be washed away, and just it lingers a bit longer. I don't know. I'm a little torn. I'm having a bit of an existential crisis We,
Me.
but yeah, no, I'm liking this beer a lot. I think maybe the tartness at the end. See, I don't know. I'm still not sure. I either really like that, or I'm thinking if you just took that tartness off it a little bit, would it be better? I'm not sure.
It is unique though,
No.
isn't it? I haven't had a beer like
That's-
that before, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm kind of torn between it. I don't know which way. Like, is it leave it there, or if you take it off the tartness, is that going to make it better? But at the same time, that could detract from the beer as it is, you know? So that's where I'm
I
kind of
feel
stuck
like-
in between them.
I feel like if you took that tartness away, then you're going to be. I know it's only 4.5%, but I think you're going to taste the alcohol a lot more if
Maybe.
that's not there. And I think that's. I think the tartness is, like you're saying earlier on, takes the harshness out of it, which in my book makes it a lot more drinkable and a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, I was going to say, and in comparison to what we were talking about the New England we had last week, and I remember saying, I was like, yeah, it doesn't really stand out against anything else. Whereas in this, and you're like looking at like pale ale is so vast, like there's so many different types. It's hard to kind of stand out against a lot. And I'm kind of thinking that little bit of tartness at the end that you do get kind of makes it stand out, which I kind of really appreciate and really like. And I suppose as a sour fan, more so than most, than the four of us, I'd appreciate probably more than maybe the rest of you would.
I feel like you take the tartness away and it's just a kind of plain beer because it's the main flavour coming through.
Yeah.
I know it's got a juicy kind of notes to it, but it's definitely the overriding flavours, that lemony kind of tartness you're getting. I'm not getting like, oh, lemony flavour, then stone fruit, or then a pininess, or then a resinous, whatever. It's just literally that, and then a kind of juiciness, and then it fades.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think I thought about it too much, but it is. I would love to try one if they. I would love to try one if they brought it out and somehow got that tartness back, just to see. Like, I know it would make it just another one in the bunch, whereas this has that standout character, being the tartness and that kind of lemony flavor. But I think if they made one and it was just one of the bunch, imagine how drinkable that would. Like, this is pretty drinkable already, I can say that. But imagine how drinkable something like that would be if you just took off that tartness at the end. It'd be ridiculously sessionable. Ridiculously so.
I don't know. I don't know if you've had it, Nally, but I think you have, Walshy, for sure. In Bongo, it wouldn't be that tart now.
No.
No, it's not. No. But but in Bongo it's a tropical IPA. It's a different thing. And Bongo is also 5 point something % as far as I remember.
Yeah.
Whereas this is, this is a pale ale. It's aiming for that kind of lower ABV range, which,
Yes.
That's why I'm thinking if you just took that tartness off, like, even if you brought down the alcohol, this would be an unreal session IPA. If you brought this down to about 4% and took away that tartness, that'd be an unbelievable session IPA.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think the juiciness is. So I'm about 2/3 of the way through this, right? The juiciness is adding a certain heaviness to the beer. Now, it's not a huge amount, but certainly I think it'd be too much for a session. Like, I actually think it's kind of detracting from it a bit. This is not something you're gonna like neck back 2 or 3 of them. I just feel it's missing some more standard kind of carbonation to make it refreshing. It's almost like a beer that you'd have on a cold evening sitting inside in the warm, like, or I'm going to watch a movie and have one beer. This would be a nice sipper for 2 hours or whatever. Like, it's not going to change massively if it warms up a bit. It's still going to be have flavor in it, and I'm going to enjoy it. But I don't know. I don't see this as being kind of in the sessionable range.
Fair enough. The other thing I will say, just that you're saying it there, I've gone through, as we go through the beer, we say finish the whole way through. This hasn't changed from start to finish for me.
No.
At all.
Say that
it's
very
super
consistent.
so it is.
Very true.
Which is something I really like in a beer. Sometimes it's nice with maybe a stout or something that you are going to be sipping on for quite a while. You like those flavors to kind of evolve as you're going through it, but not so much with something that's 4.5% that you're just there to enjoy a can. Like, you don't want a whole load of change in it. You don't want to be super surprised. Sometimes you just want to have a nice can and just enjoy it and sit there and just, like you said, Mark, you're just watching a movie, you're just kind of zoning out. It's a perfect sipper for that, because you're not going to get that strange surprise halfway through and be like, oh, what's going on here? I have to let me gather my thoughts and have another go at this. It's just the whole way through consistent. Like,
Okay, so we will move it on into the rating system, I suppose, which, as always, starts at unbearable. Then we go to booze.
Booze.
Then it's just beer, followed by Brutiful, and then it's the much coveted and much sought after unbeerleavable. So, look, I'll start this one off. This beer is me. This beer is big. It's juicy. It's full of flavour. As Natty said 2 minutes ago, it's consistent from start to finish. Now, as we said earlier on as well, it started off very, very carbonated, and after maybe 5 minutes, it died down. I feel like that would make it worse if it stayed that carbonated the whole way through, which I know most beers wouldn't anyway. But I think I found a beer from Boundary that I like more than Mbongo. So I'm going to say that this is unbeerleavable.
I'll go next, just not to mess your waters up completely, in case you assume that I'm tanking a beer or bringing it up. As I said before, actually on this podcast, because it's Boundary, I've been more critical on them. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've gotten that from the way we were talking about it earlier, and I was kind of saying, maybe get rid of this tartness, maybe get rid of that. At the same time, this beer is savage in my opinion. Like, I'm a huge fan of this. I think Boundary have done it again. They just made a really, really solid beer. One that I am happy to sit. Like, my only problem with it is it's gone. And I don't have more. This is one of the times on the freaking podcast where, I know I've said it a few times, but this is one of the times where I'm like, the beer is gone, and I'm just devastated I didn't buy another one. For me, this is up there. But I have had better Boundary ones as well. So I will say, for me, it's a Brutiful. But I'm a big fan of it, but it is a Brutiful.
Yeah, so a little bit torn with this one. I do enjoy the kind of lemony and tartness I'm getting off of it. It does have a lovely mouthfeel, nice and velvety, and it's a pleasant beer to look at. But I think for me, it's a little heavy. I kind of disagree with you, King. I think it could maybe use a bit more of that front end carbonation to last a bit longer. And I think the juiciness of it, while the ABV is kind of low, they kind of don't really work together for me. I feel like with that juiciness, you want a little bit more of a kick to it to kind of cut through. It's a bit soupy. Like, it's kind of that lip smacking, not like lukewarm soup kind of feel sometimes. I'm kind of torn between two. I think I'm going to give this a just beer from me. I know it's a bit harsh. I'm torn between that and the Brutiful, because I do think it's a solid beer. I like its uniqueness, but I just don't think it lands quite well for me.
Kinger says he thinks he found a Boundary better than Mbongo, and I kind of went, oh. And then thinking about it, I'm like, do you know what? I don't think he's wrong. I think there's a very unique taste to this that really, like I pointed out, really makes it stand out against its peers, which is very, very hard to do. That kind of tartness at the end, I love it. I mean, it's right up my alley. It's juicy. I like all of them always have them kind of juicy beers as well. If it was in the local pub on draft, I'd happily have a nice few of them for the night. I know Mark had mentioned about, he doesn't see himself swamping the beers. I don't know how many craft beers you're necessarily swamping in general anyway. It's not something I'd really do with this kind. If I wanted to swamp beers, I'd probably just go for your cheap Carling or Coors or something like that. But this for me is gorgeous, and as Pale Ale goes, I don't think there's huge amount better, because it stands out so much. And like I said, that lemon tartness in it I find it savage. So I was going to go one way, but you hear people talking, you kind of get a bit further on. I'm with Kinger. I think it's unbelievable.
Woo! Yeah, nice. Yeah, solid. I think, Mark, this ends us with a Brutiful for Existential Angst by Boundary. However, I feel like this is one of those occasions where, even though your rating was a little lower, you're more than happy for the beer to actually get a Brutiful.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, from my point of view, it's a fair reflection, because I do think, I can see where the lads are coming from. I can definitely take on board their points, but yeah, like drinkability is a massive part. Craft beer, no, and like any beer you can only have one of. Let's be honest, or a slow sipper, it's always going to struggle to hit the heights across the board, and by that I mean across 4 people who have kind of different tastes. It needs to be something special to bring us all together, and I just don't think this was that kind of special.
No,
and that's why the rating system on the Crafty Crew podcast is the world's eminent premier rating system.
Science, bitch.
God damn it, Jesse! Get back in the box.
So I mean, I could cop out here a little bit and just say that every northern accent is pretty much the same. It's a really good thing the boys from the Crafty Crew podcast are after giving existential angst a Brutiful, because I know where they live.
Oh,
oh my god! Also, a quick shout out to I don't know if anyone's heard of them, but a serious band from Belfast as well. They're called Kneecap, and it's just a heap of lads that are rapping, and half it's in Irish. It's good crack to listen.
They're called Kneecap.
Yeah. They're called Kneecap, yeah, and they're from Belfast, and it's a heap of lads just rapping in Irish. They're good crack.
I love it, lads. Listen, so I know that and I'm only bragging over 2 here because Mark has created all of our quizzes this season. But as I have three quiz wins in a row, I said I'd give you a week off. And I have a quick question. So I know last season I asked you if you could have one beer for the rest of your life, what beer would it be? And we threw up a couple of options. So this time I'm taking the choice away a little bit. So you have to use your initials and choose 2 beers for the rest of your life using your own initials.
Oh, well, that's a good one.
Beer styles or specific beers beginning with those initials?
Specific beers with those initials.
Okay, I actually have one straight off the bat, but I need to.
Yeah, I'm pretty close.
I have two maybe. I mean, not to cop out, but I do have a can right in front of me that has both of my initials on that I thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, if we go with a brewery, I've got the entire Sierra Nevada range, but So I'll go first then for the crack, because I think I have 2 that I'm pretty happy with. I think this will work well as well because they're 2 pretty contrasting styles, which will cover me for a wide range of occasions. One's a stout, and one's an IPA, so I think I'm pretty covered for most occasions. First one for S is Seeking Sunshine. It's a pretty handy one, won't lie.
Oh,
love
that
it.
got you. That's
savage. Yeah. Love it. Dead center. Seeking Sunshine. Just an amazing beer. Love it. Quality. And my other one is a stout. It's by Vocation Brewery, and it's naughty or nice. And it's a chocolate stout, and it's so good. It's just so nice. So it is. Huge fan of it. If anyone can get it, if you're a fan of stouts, Kinger, this might be one that you might even like. It's kind of a sweet stout. It's not got much coffee to it. It's just chocolatey sweet stout. It's really good quality. Vocation will be one of my favorite breweries from over in England that I've had as well. So they just pump out some good stuff. Big fan. So that'll be my 2: Seeking Sunshine and Naughty and Nice by Vocation.
Okay, so I have mine, and I'm torn. So, God, because it's like the 2 beers you can have for the rest of your life. The 2 beers I want to pick are 2 stouts, but as to Nally's point, you need to cover yourself for a wide range of scenarios here. So what I wanted to pick was Millionaire Stout, the Oak Age Stout in particular, by the Wild Beer Co. And Here We Are Now, that unbelievable stout I had for Dead Center. But I think based on the fact it was a limited edition and I only had it once, I'm going to get rid of Here We Are Now, and I'm going to go with Hope's Hop On Session IPA. Nice session, delicious, very enjoyable, and also that covers session covers 80% of drinking scenarios, and the stout covers, I feel like, at least 10% of the remaining 20. So My two are going to be Millionaire, Oak Aged Stout, and Hop On by Hope.
Solid.
For P, I'm going to go with Hope's Pass If You Can.
Yes.
And Kinnegard's
Nice.
White Rabbit.
Oh,
Oh,
that's a nice beer. That's a nice
very
beer.
good,
That's a
yeah.
good shout for it. Tough one with W as well, so
Yeah.
that's a great shout for it. So it is.
I was
Yeah.
surprised as such a Rascals fan. I was surprised you didn't go with their Wunderbar. But
Yeah,
Haven't had it.
you would love it. You should try it.
Yeah.
it's wunderbar.
I'm gonna go with No Worries from Lervig. I know it's a non-alcoholic beer, but that's just to give myself a break whenever I need it, because this is like a for the rest of your life type deal. And my K is Calamancification from the Wild Beer Company.
Oh,
It's
a
a
good one.
cracking beer. I still don't know what hibiscus is, but I know I like it.
Oh, that was the
Yeah,
sour
yeah.
one, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Big shout out to the Wild Beer Company then. Of the 8 beers we're going to drink for the rest of our lives, 2 of them are from them. So well done.
and Hope got 2 as well.
Yeah, well, they are the
Did
best
Hope get
brewery
2?
in the world. So
Yeah, they're close second to
Hope
dead
are
second,
pretty
but that's fine.
decent.
I mean, it's it's easier when you get all the initials lined up, Mark. But that's besides.
Yeah.
No more than anything like this, the more you look into it, and you will automatically regret the answers you give.
Let's crack on with the Beer Hut Brewing Company's Session IPA, lads. So crack them open. Soft and tropical. Here we go.
this will be interesting considering we all agreed the last beer had quite a soft, velvety mouthfeel. But it wasn't called out, obviously. But this time they're calling it out as soft. So it will be interesting
Yeah.
to see where it lands.
I think it'll be good to see. Yeah. It's also, what is it, 3.9, is it?
Yeah.
3.9, yeah. So a nice low ABV session.
It's much lighter and it's much more see-through.
Yeah, nowhere near as hazy.
It does. I guess you can measure the
That's good.
carbonation as the head dissipates quite quickly on it. So it's not like, at least not wheat beer style. But it is quite a hazy session, I have to say. It's the second kind of hazy beer we've had today.
It is a little bit hazy, but it's
Like, can you see through it?
suppose
I
it
can't
is.
see through it.
a tiny bit.
I mean, it's certainly not as hazy as the previous one, though.
Yeah, definitely.
No, but it's definitely, like, you would say that it's hazier than like your regular kind of.
Well, I mean, especially for a session, probably like.
Yeah.
The other thing is,
fair.
I mean, I have had a couple of sessions that are pretty hazy. Like, Whiplash Rollover is pretty hazy for a session. And I think that's about 3.5% as well. But solid beer. It's not, it's not too hazy. You can still see it through it. It's definitely a lighter straw color. When the head does eventually go, it does have a really nice kind of smell to it. It is kind of got that, those kind of tropical notes coming off it. They're not as strong as the previous one we've had, but they're definitely there, which is good because
Yeah.
If a beer is calling out telling me it's got these tropical notes, and then it doesn't smell tropical, I'm gonna have some questions there about that.
So sometimes a can or a craft brewery will give you a little description on the side. So Beer Hut have done this with this. This is their take on what this beer is. So they say a juicy and easy drinking little session beer. Brewed with Citra and Chinook hops, it brings forward flavours of citrus and pine. Bright in colour with a soft and pillowy body. So I guess the kind of Chinook hops and the piney flavour is a bit old school, Ali, isn't it? A bit West Coast?
Yeah, they'd be some of the more traditional kind of hops, let's say. But that's cool, man. It's just going to be a full on lemon tree. Just a pillowy version of a lemon tree.
Yeah, so the mouthfeel, I mean, I actually think it's not as soft as the last one, but it is still, it's quite velvety. It's still a soft, non-aggressive mouthfeel. Although I am surprised at how velvety Existential Angst was. So the fact that it's even more so than this.
But that's 100% coming from the Chinook hops. So it's that pininess that all of us kind of like. We I know we're fans of IPAs. But most we all kind of prefer that newer New England style, fruitier kind of flavor in the beer, whereas the pininess that you get from Chinook hops is more old school. And I think the pininess is definitely what's taken away from that the softness of the mouthfeel that we were saying from the last one.
It's got a pretty dry finish as well, would you say?
Yeah, pretty dry. There's not nowhere near as much carbonation as like, and one of the things you were saying about the last one, it didn't have enough carbonation in it for you. This has zero carbonation essentially. It's super low carbonation. Well, my one anyway that I have is super low carbonation, so it is.
No, definitely. It's like it's so dry though that you're getting that pininess. I would say almost exclusively pininess for me in the aftertaste. Not. It's like citrus while it's in your mouth and there's liquid there. As soon as you swallow it, it's like dry, piney, and I can see this being quite divisive with people who don't like the old West Coast style. That if you don't, sorry, that if you don't like that piney resinous type of flavor, this is going to be an off-putting beer for you.
Would it be in a session if it's something that, you know, a session IPA being something you should be able to drink quite a few cans of. The whole point of a session is the sessionability of it. That's where the name comes from. So if you're not someone who's into the pininess, that kind of old school IPA flavor, you know, although this looks like it's going to be hazy and going to be kind of fruity and stuff, that pininess is the overriding flavor for me.
Ruins it a little bit for me. I think I've said it before that I'm definitely more kind of an East Coast, would say, fan. That old school West Coast type pininess thing that you're talking about, I don't find it super pleasant. On the carbonation that you're saying earlier, mine is fairly carbonated now. I have to say it's much more carbonated than Boundaries, which works for me in this instance because it kind of washes away the taste pretty quickly. You know, I don't know, maybe if it's the can we had different or the glasses or whatever, but
No, I think I'm with you, Kinger, that we prefer that kind of East Coasty to the West. That pininess isn't something I love, and the pininess is I'm finding kind of sharp, and it kind of overshadows nearly the rest of it, which I'm not
a little bit
loving. Like, it's not bad by any means, but it's not something that I'd be, or like, yeah, no, like Nadia was saying after the last one, is like, oh, if anything, I'm raging. I don't have a second can in the fridge. I'm like, so with a second one in the fridge, I'd drink it. But if I never had one again, I'm not going to lose sleep over it either, you know. So it's that pininess, I'm just not, and that could be a thing. Like, it is, me and you kind of prefer the East Coast kind of a fruitier style IPA against this, and it's just kind of our own personal preference, you know.
Yeah, now look, that said, and I mean that, you know, that's a personal preference thing, but I think I can still look at it kind of and enjoy it for what it is. I think it's still a very nice beer. I think it is super sessionable. You know, you've given the example before, Walsh, of like if you're at someone's house and they offered you a can of this, I'm not going to turn my nose up and say, oh no, I'm good. I'll drink it. Do you know what I mean? It's you know, it's that kind of, it's not bad, like, but it's for me, I just feel like I've definitely had nicer, you know.
So they call it out as being soft and tropical. The one kind of saving grace I'll say with it, that it is in general a softer beer than most. Now, we had an incredibly velvety beer before this, so it's hard to not compare it and say, oh, it's harsher than that. But compared to most beers you're going to drink, this is quite soft. The tropical bit is where I'm falling off a bit, because there's fleeting smells of it when you first pour it. There's a bit of a taste when you are holding your mouth. But this is quite traditional in terms of an IPA. This is almost like a if you just said traditional West Coast IPA and was like 4.4%, like that's what I am tasting. That's the flavor profile I'm getting off it, the mouthfeel kind of profile. Which to personally I don't have a problem with. But if you're gonna put tropical on a can, you have to be aware of what people are going to think and expect from that. You know, people these days especially, like, you know, when you see tropical, you see citra, you see, I don't know. Yeah, I guess those two are like kind of almost interchangeable. If you see one or the other, you're going to be expecting big fruity notes of something, and almost like a juice kind of thing. Now, I just think the tropical's a bit of misbranding in this case.
Yeah, it's not a flavor or a flavor profile that you want to be subtle with. There are some beers that the flavors, like, it's important that they're subtle or that they're just about there. But if you're saying tropical on the can, it has to kind of really be the main character of the beer. I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think we've had this a few times now with a couple of different beers where they've had a beer style on the can, or they've advertised themselves as something specific, and then we've had it and we're like, but that's not what you are at all. You're not. You're just this. Like, don't say you're a brown ale shouting at strangers, you filthy animal, and then
fuck you, Wylam,
and be something else. Yeah, and be a sour. Be what you say on the can. And like if they had said, session IPA, just not even said was it, like a session New England or a session old school IPA. Just say session IPA, and I think you're solid with this. Now, to be fair to them, the name is session IPA, but like just leave it at that. Don't put the descriptor in as soft and tropical. Because that gives that extra bit of the tropical. You read it and you're expecting these tropical flavors and this tropical sensation with it, but it's not there as much. Session IPA is perfect for it. Just leave it at that. Just stop.
Yeah, I wonder when you see some of them. So like the one we had before, it was just existential angst pale ale. Is that kind of, not say playing it safe, but just to kind of cover themselves down? Like if they said a Citra pale ale, say for example, and maybe even one of us didn't get the Citra part of it, you're like, oh, okay, you're not doing what it says. If you took out the soft or the tropical and just said, like you said, just leave that session IPA, you've kind of covered yourself, and on every basis. If you get so many different types of tastes and stuff like that, it's like, oh, that's grand, it's just a session IPA then, instead of blanching onto a specific.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and I think just a quick for boundary. I mean, they can't call it Citra. Citra IPAs tend to be solely comprised of Citra hops. That's why they're Citra IPAs. So they have other hops in there, so they can't really say that. But I do think it's the same thing that I was just saying. It's 100%. If you're advertising yourself as a tropical IPA, I'm expecting something more like remember we had that Hopfully Graciosa. That was pretty good. Or even something like Boundaries in Bongo, which is kind of tropical IPA as well. You know what I mean? I'm expecting more of those like pineapple flavors or something like that to come through. Not so much pine tar.
Yeah, just to name drop a few more. So like Brews, Osiris or Tutti Frutti are in that range as well.
Yeah.
But I think the hop profile of this is a bit of a contradiction. And I want to just say, in terms of Chinook, which would be a traditional old school West Coast piney hop, like, and Citra hops, which, like, obviously, you can't say hops are a contradiction, but Citra hops primarily these days are in Citra or tropical or fruit flavored IPAs and DIPAs that are like really East Coast, New England, that kind of side of the coin. And Chinook is kept for the old school West Coast traditional IPAs. This may be the first one that, like, it's hard to know. Not everyone puts the hops on the can, but I think it's the first one where I've had both and only those two hops in the beer. And I think they basically pretty much cancel each other out. Maybe the Chinook wins a little bit because it's the piney notes that are coming through more. Yeah. So, like, I really feel like it's kind of a contradiction there, and I don't think it works.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. It's kind of a weird one where you have both of them together. As you say, usually you're going to have, you're either going for that old school IPA, West Coast, or you're going for the New England IPA. There's not many of them. Now, I know it's starting to become a thing of that, like, what is it, the Mountain IPA, which is kind of a mix of both of them. But if this is Beer Hut's core range, I mean, I don't know if you want a Mountain IPA to be part of your core range. If you get what I mean, you probably want to swing one way or another and have it more consistent and more
own it, like.
Yeah, this feels like a weird thing I'm about to say, but have it more mainstream if it's your core range. Like, either be New England, like, it's weird to say about craft beer mainstream, but either be West Coast or be New England. Like, if you want to be that,
fence.
if you want to be the Mountain IPA, bring it out, like, and bring it out as a special, but for it to be your core range, I just think it's a bit much.
I think we can tighten that up, Nally, like mainstream within the craft beer industry.
Yeah, that's more than fair to say.
Yeah. Be mainstream, but within this cliquey, artisanal industry that we are all fans in. Don't be American Light Lager mainstream.
Very fair.
Yeah, I like it's. I think just a very quick story. I think my main issue with the kind of the West Coast type of the West Coast type style of hops, it comes from my disappointment with Double Jack, being a Dipper fan and then not really having that, like, the Dipper that I was used to. You know what I mean? Like it was I've always felt burned by that. I know it's one of the top rated beers like ever, but it just, for me, it was super disappointing. And it tastes the same. It's just that it's that piney, resinous kind of. It's just not super enjoyable.
I'm glad I'm not the only one holding grudges on this podcast, King. Oh, man.
Okay. Look, I mean, if we've no more to say, I think we should move on to the rating, shall we?
Yeah, I'll go first. I actually do enjoy the flavour of this beer. I like the dryness. It's not overpowered. Like, there's definitely piney notes there. There's a piney aftertaste. It kind of gets a bit bigger towards the end of the drink, but not massively so. I would actually session this. I think it's quite nice, and I would give it a Brewtiful, only for their flagrant false advertising of tropical. So because of that, it's getting kicked down a notch to just beer for me.
You know me, I don't like to be negative. I'm quite a positive person when it comes to most beers.
But
no beer has ever done well after Kinger has said, "You know me, I like to be positive."
Yeah, it doesn't hit the mark for me. I was really expecting something really tropical and really kind of like an explosion of flavor, but it just wasn't there. The addition of the kind of the West Coast style isn't going to sit well with me ever, so I'm going to say this is a booze for me.
Oh,
yeah.
Kinger has fluctuated wildly on this show.
Sorry, Beer Hut. I'm sorry.
I'll go next. Just a bit reeling from Big Juicy giving something a booze. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah, so for me, Kinger, I'm going to agree with you. This is a booze for me. It's grand. I just like, it's the combination of flavors. It's fine. It's something I know is kind of starting to take off, and I think it'll be okay. I just don't think they've done it well in this case. It's part of their core range. It's probably selling for them if it's part of your core range. It's just not something that I'm going to be having on the regular. Like, I'm okay without it. It's fine. It's just a booze. I don't have much more to say about it. For me, the carbonation wasn't great. The flavor was nowhere near what I expected when I hear a session IPA that's going to be soft and tropical. It was neither, in my opinion. So it's just a booze.
I can see where this is going, and just before Walshy, I guess puts that final nail in the coffin. I will say this is probably the worst entry I've had of their core range, and I urge anyone listening to give their IPA, especially, a try. It's a really nice entry, and definitely a standard beer. Maybe this one's going to let it down a little bit, but their other core range are very good.
Yeah, so see, I don't mind it. It's nice enough that I comfortably drink it again, if given. Like we said, it's like if someone gave it to you, or you're like, you had another one in the fridge. Like, I'm not going to be upset that it's there. But as I said earlier on, that pininess kind of seems to overshadow the rest for me. I think it's because kind of Mark pointed out, is like it said something that there's none of it in the tropical. So I was leaning towards kind of a straight down the middle, but you're like, it says tropical. I mean, if you're not sure what way you're going, just take out that point, leave it at a session. It's a straight out session. But
drive that nail home, Walshy.
Exactly.
Drive it home.
I don't like to say it because it's not a bad beer in comparison to ones that we've given it. But yeah, I think it'd have to be a booze for me as well.
So I think that lands us on a booze, but I think the summary from all of our ratings has been this is an okay beer that's having marks taken away from it for false advertising.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is no more than yourself, Mark, when you gave the boundary a just beer. You were happy with it being beautiful. I would have been okay with this if it had gotten a just beer rating. It
100%,
would
yeah.
have been okay
Yeah.
by me, but I couldn't give it that rating on my own.
Yeah.
But I would have been okay if it got there. You know what I mean?
Scotland.
Kinger, if you go back about a half an hour, bud, you'll see exactly what
I
you
know,
said about
I
them.
kind
Yeah?
of had it. Yeah.
They're a bit more country,
They're
King.
more
Right?
bit more country,
They're
yeah.
country. They're a bit more country. They like the farming in Down.
Oh, you're real Monaghan there.
Yeah.
I know. I've
Beer
So
Hut.
that's a disappointing booze for Beer Hut's Session IPA on the Crafty Crew podcast.
That's alright.
That'll do.
It's alright, that'll do.
It's grand. Every accent from the north is the same, essentially. That's kind of where we're landing with that.
Jesus Christ.
Guys, we've kind of spoken a little bit, like throughout the podcast, historically on episodes, and even today, where you say, you know, that's the beer that I wouldn't mind coming back to. All right, you know, I'd have a few if the opportunity arose. But I guess yourselves, like myself, we constantly are trying new things, and I think a lot of the craft beer market is like that. That you're constantly moving on to the next thing, the next beer, the next special edition, whatever. And it's only really those absolute standout favourites you have that you go back to regularly. And then if you could have a really good beer, really enjoy it, but if it's not one of those top couple you get, you're not really going back to it. Do you think there's a lot of beers out there that are quite good but not quite excellent that get hurt by this kind of thing?
I think, Mark, exactly kind of what you're saying, because it is the craft beer community, and a lot of us tend to go on and try. The whole joy of it for me is trying all those different beers and eventually finding one that's unbeerleavable. You know, and there is the chance that some places get hit by that. I think that's why it's such a powerful thing for some of those craft breweries to have their own brew house, their own tap room. Like for example, us Dead Center being in town here, because you get to have that core range and you get to go out and enjoy craft beer served by the brewery in their tap room, you know, the way you like it, you know. Whereas if it maintained just being stuff where I'm ordering online, then yeah, 100%, 95% of the beers I'm probably only going to have once, because you just want a new beer comes out and I'm like, maybe I'll just try this. I've already had that. I'm just going to try this one instead. But at least when a brewery has their tap room, you can go there. You know you're going to get top quality beer. You get to try their new beers or their seasonal beers as they bring them out. Solid, no bother at all. You know, I think especially during the pandemic, it has been more of the case because, well, the four of us have been ordering our beers online, and the problem with that is every week they have a new selection of beer. So I'm like, I really can't wait to get this beer again, and I log on and I'm like, it's a $5 for this one, or I could get this brand new one for this much. Yeah, I'll get the new one. That boosts my Untapped, gives me that bit extra, and it's a new beer to try. Why not? You know. So I do think that just by the nature of by the nature of craft beer fans like ourselves, it is more about the trying the different styles and the different beers, which could hurt some places, especially the smaller breweries that don't have their own tap rooms.
Yeah, to pretty much, kind of Nally summed it all up. I think it's not even necessarily crucial, but it's needed. I know a lot of places can't have their own tap rooms or their own bars. Like, just for example, I'm going to Limerick in a couple of weeks, and I automatically, one of the first thing I did was search breweries near where I was staying, and Treaty City is actually only down the road from the hotel I'm staying at. I was like, I'll go down there, but they don't unfortunately have a tap room. So you're like, if they had a tap room, I'd go in for one or two, but they don't, so I probably won't. So you're kind of, that's the hurt places. Places can't help not having it. It's just not accessible for some places. But, you know, like I said, if they had a tap room, I'd be more inclined to go in, have a few. But if they don't, you're not going to, you know, so it's...
If they were anyway smart, Walshy, they'd slap one up in a week or two, knowing the amount of money you'd spent.
I'm sure I'd throw them a tenner or something, you know.
Gotta get them very fair. I'm very much a creature of habit lately, for sure. I think when we started the podcast and when I was getting more into craft beer, I was more adventurous, maybe. That I'd take a punt on just picking up a random beer and seeing what it was like. Now I'm anytime I've been in the off license or in a good kind of craft brew selection in a shop, I'll kind of look for what I know and kind of not take the risk. I know that doesn't really answer your question. Like,
But it kind
I'm
of does,
getting at
King,
is-
because you, I guess,
Yeah,
represent
a
the other
little bit,
side of
yeah.
the coin. There's people like us
Yeah.
who are just constantly wanting to try the new thing and have a new experience.
Yeah.
And then I guess there's enough of the craft beer market who want just their favourites. They find their favourites quickly, slowly, whenever, and they're like, "Grand, this is my wheelhouse. I am now sticking in it, and I like these kind of beers." And probably
Yeah.
it's a wide enough range you have, but it's still a range. You're not going to go outside of that often.
Yeah, but I am always thrilled when I do go out on a limb or somebody recommends a beer and I really like it. I like it's there is a bit of a thrill to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess this question was kind of inspired. There's a famous quote from Henry Shackleton, the famous mountaineer, climbed Everest and #1 at the top. But his thing was, oh yeah, you use science to raise the money and the excuse, but you really climb for the hell of climbing. You climb for the hell of it. So for me, it's like I try craft beers for the experience of trying new craft beers. The excuse I use is that, oh yeah, well look, my excuse is these 10 unbelievable craft beers I can tell you that you're going to love. No matter who asks me, they're going to love these. But really, bar one or two of them, I wouldn't mind if I never had most of those favourites again, as long as I got to keep trying new things over and over and over. And now maybe, Kinger, 10, 15 years when I'm as old as you, I might settle down like yourself. But
Whoa. Wow. That is
Ooh, baby.
and for the rest of this edit, Mark's mic is now muted. So
And scene. Jesus Christ.
just to end us on that, how old actually are you, Kinger?
I managed to stay alive for 63 and a half years. We're going to leave it there for the time being. We're going to
63 years, baby. 63 years.
okay, next week we are heading to Donegal and Derry. How am I getting out of this episode?
Not well, Kinger. You're not getting out of it well. This isn't going well. And I think that's the easiest way to end it. So that's a goodbye from myself, Nolly, Mark, Walshy and Kinger on the Crafty Crew podcast. We'll chat to you next time. Good luck.
I love it.